Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or morning still. I guess it's about 11:30 here in Austin. And the joy of live recording and audio video is that you can practice all you want. You can get dialed in 30 minutes early, and sometimes, just as with the topic we're talking about today, things don't work like they should. So we are with you today from Austin, Texas. My name is Matt Leschper with 1836 Property Management. The topic we're going to discuss today is how to handle the aftermath of a flood at your rental. And just like the AV equipment today, things should work. They don't always work. So that's why you get a flood. You've got hard piping, you've got everything dialed in. And of course, it never happens at 9 a.m. on a Monday when you're getting ready. It happens at 9 p.m. on a Sunday when you've left the country and you're on a plane to Europe or something. And that's when the house floods. So this is a great example of the unexpected. We do have a new software update to Crowdcast, which is the software we're using to display this and share these videos with you. So just as we had a little bit of a video problem before we got started and we were 2 minutes late, this is a new software. We're figuring out our way through it. You do not want to figure out your way through a flood at your rental property. So hopefully we'll give you some great content today that gives you confidence on what you can do and who you can talk to. Again, my name is Matt with 1836 Property Management. We are in the center of Austin, Texas, and we serve the entire Metroplex, if you will, all the way from Gerald down to the northern edge of San Marcos and east and west to the lake and then out to Bastrop. Today, we are here with Derek Rosas with WOW Total Cleaning and Restoration. He's one of our licensed, experienced, knowledgeable vendors that we've been using for years in the greater Austin area. We have to use vendors, guys, that we can count on. If someone is on our vendors list, it's because we can count on them, because they handle billing appropriately, because they know how to deal with insurance, because they show up on time, or they call if something's unusual, and we collaborate with them so that we can service your properties. We can't call a guy who may have insurance to help you, because we're responsible for delivering quality services, not a guy who won't show up later on. So Derek and them specialize in water damage, mold removal, remediation, and they can do a lot more. So we do have some polls today. And we used to kind of do these on the fly. I know a lot of you guys will watch this afterwards, so you may not get to participate in the poll, but today we're going to try a little bit different. We should have these posted for you already, so you can answer those when you so desire to. The yes and no are self-explanatory. NA on some of those polls would mean, well, maybe you don't have a rental property yet, or maybe this is not applicable to you for some reason. So feel free to answer those when you get around to them. We will cover them when we get to them in our content today. And I think before we go any further, Derek, please do a little introduction for us of who you are, who your company is, what you do, what you don't do.
All right, very good. Appreciate that. Derek, like you said, Rosas, do business management for WOW Total Cleaning and Restoration. Now, WOW is locally owned and operated for over the past 20 years. It's a company that really, it's all started with a couple of brothers who were in the business of really carpet cleaning first, and they recognized that they kept getting called upon to do the carpet cleaning. They were working for another company at the time. They were the ones that were requested regularly, and they started to realize there's a reason for that. They were doing what they thought was good customer service that everybody does or should do, but no, they were standing out. They was upbringing, whatever it was, they were doing it right and being requested regularly. So they thought, you know what, let's do this for ourselves. And they did, and they launched carpet cleaning, but it's evolved. Now the primary thing that we do is the remediation work, water restoration, mold remediation, fire, smoke, that kind of thing, to clean those things up. We still do carpet cleaning, but the main thing we do is the restoration side. And over 20 years now, maintain close to a 5-star rating. That's not an accident. You can do that for 20 years. You couldn't fake it. It's because we do things right. And that's really the motto that we preach every Monday when we meet. Always do the right thing, which is important because, we're imperfect like everybody else. So, if something happens, we're going to fix it and make it right. But by and large, we're getting it right. And so that's who we are. We know when you call us, it's not a good thing. We want to do what we can to make it right as quick as we can.
Spectacular, Derek. Well, today in our presentation, we're going to cover a few different topics. Specifically, dealing with the aftermath of a flood, we're going to talk about steps to take immediately because, well, after your heart rate goes down and you realize that, well, the flood's already happened, you're going to kind of start freaking out because you don't know what to do. We'd like to give you some answers so you're not having to pull up Google and then ask maybe the new AI what you should do before you drive your car into the desert on the AI's directions or something. We're going to talk about some costs associated with managing the problem that you now have. You have a problem. It's not going to go away. It's not going to get better on its own. So you're going to have to get help. You're going to have to deal with it, but that's okay. That's what people do. We're also going to talk about the effects if it's left untreated or treated poorly. You do not want to do this yourself. I know everybody in our current environment, the real estate situation, we've got a lot of what we call on this side of the table reluctant landlords. They've got a house that maybe they couldn't sell. They don't want to spend any more money, but this is not one of the things you're going to want to do yourself. And last but not least, how can you prevent this from happening? It's kind of a big deal. There's some steps you can take that will cost you a couple bucks and save you thousands. And that's what our job is to help you guys be successful real estate investors. So steps to take immediately. What can you tell us, Derek, that the investors are going to want to know right there that you're seeing day to day? What are the first things they need to come out of the bat with?
Yeah, whenever that call comes in with regard to a major water intrusion, time really truly is of the essence, because the moment that starts happening, water is going out, it's seeking dry spots, it's weeping in the walls and going into where it can. And the longer it does it, the more damage it's causing. So I say that time is so important because it can go make the difference between just a small little cleanup that needs to happen to a major cleanup that needs to happen that's going to involve major dollars to go along with it. So that's the first thing I would say is make sure that the reaction is quick and prompt. Stop that bleeding. And that's why we have what we call the stabilization protocol when we work with companies like 1836 who understand and appreciate that this is a serious thing and they're responsible for this baby that is the property of these homeowners. And so they understand that. Get there quickly to minimize that. Now, from a company standpoint, truly it is our goal to do what we can to minimize that and stop that bleeding, right? If it does go into further things, does that mean more work for a restoration company? Yeah, but that's not what we're about. We're about truly helping out the customer to get the help they need at that time. And that means making less work for us. That's okay, because we're doing what needs to be done. So that's the first thing I'd say, Matt, and I appreciate when companies like yours has that understanding from the owners that the maintenance person has the call to go ahead when it's an emergency like that. Let's go ahead and get things done. And we have that stabilization process where we stop the bleeding, get it to where it's not going to do any more damage necessarily, as minimizes it rather. Then you can make the calls to the homeowners to find out, look, what do we want to do moving forward? But even then, we want to try to get it done as quick as possible.
You mentioned one thing in there that kind of struck me. I'm the owner of 1836, and there's no outside investors. You guys are locally owned. A bunch of our other vendors that we love are locally owned. And as a consumer, I think, when times are good, people spend money, and when times are tough, they're like, oh, sometimes people are out to get me. And we've all heard of horror stories, but the truth is that if you run a small business for 20 years, you can do nothing except care for people, because if you did bad things, it would have already caught up to you. There is no, they're out to get me if they're privately owned and they've been in business 20 years, because the courts would have taken them out of business if they weren't behaving correctly. People would have sued them. I always laugh nowadays. You can't get away with anything. It's on video, right? We kind of joke about that with kids and teenagers, but the truth is in business, it's the same. Everyone in the village now has a megaphone with media the way it is. So guys, if you're looking at selecting a vendor and the person you're looking at has no visibility, that's a problem. I don't care what they offer you, because they can disappear and take from you just as easily as they showed up at your front door. If they're a national company, they may have a good reputation or something, but I'm telling you, they can't make decisions. because they have to talk to 4 layers and it's all corporate bureaucracy. If it's a locally owned company, you can connect with real humans, you can have a team that makes decisions, and you can do the right thing. And it is a special thing I don't think we ever talk about enough. But as a consumer, you're going to pay a fair price and you're going to get a great service. And that's kind of it. But I don't know what else you would ask for. Sorry to go off on a tangent. It just kind of struck me that that is something we really need to be talking about more often, is our local partners, local vendors. Nothing against the national companies, but let's be honest, they're run by boardrooms that are trying to squeeze pennies. They're not there to deliver quality service because their family lives in the community and they don't have anywhere else to go. Those guys are going to get a parachute and leave Wall Street. The rest of us are still going to be working for a living. So anyway, enough of that tangent for me. So we've only got a few folks watching today live. Most folks watch these videos on demand, if you will, in the future, whenever it's easy for them. And then the content always stays up so we can educate our investors. But the first question we had, at least to address it, was, have you experienced significant flooding at your property? And then we've got one that's in NA, and we always said the NA earlier was when you don't own a rental property. But I'm telling you, it's when it's going to happen, not if. If you own a property, whether it's your principal residence, this could be applicable here, or if it's an investment property, you're going to have water at some point in some time, because that toilet has been sitting there connected for 20 years, and you just never know when that hairline crack or bad thread kind of works its way out and you didn't do anything wrong. So these are going to be great tips and tricks for you no matter what. Let's head on to our next topic, just to keep things moving today. Everybody's going to want to know from you, because right now, real estate's in a tough place. They don't want to spend money. What are the costs? That's the first thing. What's this going to cost me, right? Not who you are, not what's your reputation. What's this cost me? So let's just address it and put it on the table. In your experience, what are some average costs associated with flood repair, remediation that investors or even homeowners might face?
Yeah, that's a good question, and a question we get asked quite often, frankly. And it's one of those deals where it's quite truly a moving target, because you don't truly know what you get into. You get in there and find out to what extent is happening there. Like I said, that's why time really is of the essence, to get in there quickly and to get it done. So again, that's going to vary depending on the scope of the work that's being done. It could be, $300, or it could be, a few thousand, just depending on how long it was going on. Was it behind the walls for a long time where no one saw it? So we just don't know. But what it is important to recognize with the expenses being involved here is who you're using to fix the problem, because you want to have someone that is going to truly do what's right in that particular instance to make that particular situation handle it the best way possible. Because there's different things that can be done, different approaches that can be done. One thing about WOW is we are never, first of all, going to cut corners, because you want to sleep at night. But at the same time, we do look for ways that we can be effective when it's not so much work that needs to be done. And now, if you're going through insurance, it may not worry you so much because someone else is flipping the bill. But even then, we're still very conscious of that. We're not going to do anything that doesn't need to be done. But if we're recommending it's done, or obviously if mold's involved and a mold assessment consultant says this needs to be done, then we're doing it for a reason. That being said, there's others that might come in there and give a much cheaper price. It's going to happen. But what are you getting? Because what happens is that once those walls close up, you don't see truly what was done behind those walls. 8 years later, 10 years later down the road, it creeps up again because it wasn't done right. So that's the thing that I appreciate about companies like 1836, again, that understands that. Because naturally, when someone calls with an issue, this is the first time perhaps they've dealt with it. So they don't even know what they don't know, right? So they're just looking at what's the cheapest I can get. And that's never the route to go, really, with anything, because you want to make sure that you're getting things done right. And sometimes you do get what you pay for. And with WOW, we're going to do it right. And like you mentioned before, and I really appreciate you mentioning that, we've done it for a long time. So the reputation we have it's well known, and it's earned because we truly believe in that, and we take pride in that. So really, the expense route, you want to make sure that you're just going with someone you can trust, to make sure that you're not making a mistake and going a route that's going to cost you down the road, even though up front it may sound good and it may feel good to pay a little bit less. Not that we're expensive, but we're just going to do it right, if that makes sense.
It does. Work you do takes place in stages, from my knowledge. Feel free to correct me with anything that I see inaccurate. And so, your first job is to go in there and make sure the water is stopped and start drying,
Yeah.
and then do another assessment. So, if people call you and say the water is still pouring out the front door, how much is this going to cost me? Well, we haven't even stopped the problem yet, much less been on property, boots on the ground, to remove things, to look behind them. So there's steps in this process. And I would say for the consumer, be aware that your vendor needs to be able to communicate with you at those stages and at those steps. And I mean, goodness, how easy is it to go over and just say, well, let's walk through it together and actually demonstrate it and have that match what's on the bid. Again, insurance is involved a lot of the time, but people just want to feel like they're being treated fairly and honestly. And it's pretty straightforward. But if you call somebody, they've not seen your property, and they start giving you numbers, I'm trying to think of a nice word for it other than fraud or something, but they're just lying to you. You have to have someone there. They have to get in to evaluate the work. While they're evaluating it, they're going to stop the problem that is continuing, whether it is the existing moisture or a flood or whatever it is. And then you're going to have a conversation. You're not just going to go in and remodel the house because someone picked up the phone and talked to you. It's an ongoing process that you will collaborate on. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, and I'm really glad you mentioned that too, because one thing that is good to remember whenever you're a homeowner that's maybe doing this for the first time is when you go in there, again, you don't know for sure until you start getting behind the walls. So we're making certain assumptions. We do moisture readings because we can't see behind the walls. So we'll do moisture readings in advance to get an idea of how far it's spread. But sometimes you don't know what's behind there. So one thing about WOW is sometimes the estimates will give you maybe a little bit over what it may be actually in the end, but we feel better doing that as opposed to, we've heard of some who on purpose do a very low bid, knowing good and well they're going to say, oh, well, we didn't know what was happening behind the walls. Now it's going to be more. We're going to play fair, right? And so we understand that going in, but that's why I think it's so important that homeowners understand and appreciate why 1836 works with us, because we have a track record with 1836 and they know what's going on over the years. So they have that they can rely on, knowing, look, that you guys use us for a reason and we're proud of that. That kind of should give peace of mind to recognize, look, we are going to do things right. And many times, man, I've seen it from ownership here when they've gone above and beyond just to do a job, knowing good and well they could have charged much more because the homeowner was willing to pay it. They got a bid from somebody else, but thousands less we charged them, and they would have been thrilled paying half of what they were told they were going to pay. But we did what the job costs, what it took to do it, rather. And I knew then and there when I saw that a few times, I was working for the right company, because I too wanted to sleep at night. And when I go out and talk to ones about WOW, I want to be able to speak freely and have freeness of speech, recognizing who I have behind me. So that's what you get with WOW, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So the next topic we're going to cover today is what happens. You get water in your property. It could be, let's just say fresh water to make life easy, right? But you get fresh water in your property, toilet, sink, something floods. Maybe the hailstorm recently, people's skylights, and they had a little bit, but then now I've got water everywhere. Well, if I just wipe it up, I don't see anything. There's nothing that happens, right? But that's not the truth. So what happens if it's left untreated?
If it's left untreated, then what's going to happen is we don't see it with our naked eye, but then the bacteria can get involved there, and then the mold spore starts to grow, and that's when we get that dreaded M word, right? Because mold is everywhere, right? We got it. If you go into a home right now, you're going to test, you're going to find mold. But the question is, what kind of mold is it, and then what concentration is it compared to the air outside? So The important thing is to dry that out and do it properly. So that's why when you mentioned earlier, there's stages involved. So when we go to a home that has a flood of some kind, the first thing is that stabilization protocol. Again, stop that bleeding. We get the air movers going, the dehumidifiers going, as quickly as possible, get that out. And it does. It stops the bleeding in the sense of the money that's going to have to be spent to fix it, because the longer it lingers. So if you're waiting, delaying, getting a lot of bids, if you're waiting to do this or considering doing it yourself, all that time that it's doing that, then you're causing more damage, and that could have been minimized if it was just addressed and handled up front.
We've seen a couple things happen over the years. We manage enough units in enough unit years that we've seen just about everything at this point. And it always fascinates me that if we have a significant flood, insurance is definitely going to be involved in us picking up a good tab of it. And then the owner wants to argue on price. And I've never figured that out quite yet, because you're going to have a deductible and you're going to pay it. But then wouldn't you want it done properly beyond that? If I have to pay a deductible, and I know my insurance company is probably already going to hit me with that on the renewal, I don't ever want to talk about this problem again. I certainly don't want to negotiate on cheap and then find out that mold still exists in the house. The biggest thing that I've seen on my side of this that insurance companies want you to do is act quickly. If you send dryers in there and you start removing the moisture, they're like, all right, we're already 50% home and we haven't even evaluated it, because they know it's going to get worse and they're going to pay. Just like, well, you'll pay if you fail to do it properly. It's just always surprised me that people have water standing in their house and they're trying to negotiate on price. You're going to file a claim and it's just getting worse as we're on the phone. I don't know. It's just something I've seen, kind of still surprising to me. So have you seen any of that? I mean, is that you run across everything because you do this all day?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. It's interesting when people do that. I'm not sure what the mindset is there. But what's funny is it's allowed me to see things from this side of things. And even when that happens, it gave me peace of mind. Not that I was worried about it, but still, you just don't know until you know. On this side of things, we see that we're still doing things the way it's supposed to be done. So even though insurance is involved, they're not padding things that don't need to be done. We're doing what needs to be done. So if we're doing that with insurance, then that gives you peace of mind, know what we're doing for an individual. It's the same. We're going to do things the right way. And the one thing about us too that's nice about WOW is we're also able to offer turnkey service as well. So we can take it from beginning to the end of the process. So we can do all the build back work, make it look like it did before. And that's kind of nice too, because you're dealing with a reputable company once again from beginning to end, and it minimizes those headaches. But I do find that interesting how people do fight for their insurance company to pay less. But it is what it is.
They're certainly not fighting for us, but that's just my personal experience.
Yeah.
So let's jump on to another poll. Again, most folks will answer these later, but the question is routine preventative maintenance an expense you're willing to prioritize? One of the big challenges we have, because we probably get 5 requests a day for our services on the management side. People call in, and we may, on a good month, sign up one of those 5. Some will say, I don't want to pay. Some will say, whatever they may, maybe they choose another provider. But one of the questions we ask is, are you willing to maintain your property? If you're not, if we ask you about your home and you're like, it's good enough, and then we go out there and we find out the doors don't close, the windows don't open, no, it's not going to cut it. So maintenance is one of our big sticking points, so that when the flood happens, we can take care of that property knowing this homeowner actually cares about this home, because it has to serve them as an investment in the future. If we let things go downhill, the value goes down, the rents go down. We can't rent the property because people see through the mess. It's just not serving anybody. So if you're watching this later, if you're watching it today, hey, just again, please prioritize maintenance. Keep in mind that maintenance on your property is to keep up your property. We currently do not charge extra for maintenance, and most companies do. So why wouldn't you want to maintain your own property and do it right with great vendors? So the last topic we're going to cover today is prevention. We have videos out there. Obviously, there's a million out there for troubleshooting and prevention, everything else. The new tenants are different though. When we started this 20 years ago or 17, whatever it was, people wanted to talk to you. They wanted to troubleshoot. They understood. The new residents say, why are you making me do your job? I don't even want to troubleshoot. Send someone out here. And we explained to them, well, if we send someone out and it's your fault, you're paying the bill. And they don't like that. But we have these arguments, right? That's why we have a business, because nobody does the right thing. But flood prevention, troubleshooting, best practice tips, how can we communicate with those residents? Because this is still their home, even though they don't own the house while they're living in it. They certainly don't want it to be worse. They want to mitigate the plumbing issues. They want to minimize the amount of time they're going to be out of that house too. And then, so how do I communicate with them or troubleshoot with them? And then what can investors do as part of their routine preventative maintenance? Like how do we minimize the statistical probability of this happening? So, I know that doesn't help your business, but I got a feeling you're doing okay anyway. And we're going to call you when something goes bad. How do we help our consumers?
Yeah, that's interesting. The way people are today. But yeah, for one, when it comes to doing these things that need to be done right, maybe leaving the cabinet doors open so the heat gets in there, and they want to insulate these pipes. Look out for any, let you know when there's a leaking roof or some kind of water coming in through a window or something.
Oh, please say,
It could be a bigger problem. But I think from that side of things, for one, is make them see the fact that it could be their problem, right? Like you said, between moving out, having for a while, having their belongings get messed up, dealing with a hassle, even though they don't feel like it's not their responsibility. Well, they literally could be affected by it. So helping spread that message. But as far as the owners are concerned for their properties, making sure they do the things that they can. There's sensors you can get for your AC and water heater drain fans that would kind of stop the water at that point when it's starting to overflow. That make it help you as well. Maybe even having moisture readings occasionally being part of the preventive maintenance, to where you can see any hot spots that may be happening, or cool spots, I should say, that alerts you to an issue that may be there that you can't see behind those closed walls.
Yeah, I think if you see something, say something. That's the big no. And we have a lot of people who will hide things, and it makes it much worse. And if you're a resident and you didn't cause this issue, our job is to care for that property and to give you a safe home to live in. So please do not withhold information, because it could harm you or your family if it's not handled. And we want to know that it's there. We'll do our best to minimize your inconvenience, but goodness, a little bit of inconvenience over harming your family, that's not even an equal, gamble there. So there's only one right decision. I can't tell you how much we just appreciate you guys being good people. As vendors and collaborators on this, we have situations which most turn out great. Some just get weird, and it's just part of business, right? After you've been in business, you get that. That's something that happens. But we've always been able to work things out with you guys, communicate effectively, and just be good people. And I wanted to say thank you for that, because it helps us, I think, raise up our industry and keep people in good homes. And eventually that trickles down to investors having, retirement money, or putting their kids in college. And that's kind of the goal of what we do. So having guys like you is just invaluable to our success and our investors' success. So I really appreciate you guys always doing the right thing. I think that's the majority of what we've got here for you today. I apologize, we did start 2 to 3 minutes late today, but we got it going. We figured out the new software as much as we could. Derek, is there anything else you want to add that I've just failed to ask about while we've got you here today?
No, I want to mention, first of all, thank you for the kind words. We appreciate working with your company as well. We work at other property management companies also, but it's really refreshing the way you take care of these babies, so to speak, of these owners, and seeing it that way. Because so often we'll get property management companies where we'll call and ask questions like, well, what can you do for this much? Looking to find shortcuts, and it happens quite often. It's surprising, and they think they're doing a service for the homeowners that are managing their properties for, but they're not seeing the bigger picture and recognizing this huge investment that they have, that they're managing for them. You guys recognize doing things right, and it's nice to have a partnership with people who are like-minded, truly taking care of their customers the way we do with ours. So I appreciate that. But other than that, again, thank you for your time and the chance to be able to tell our story a little bit. One thing I like to mention is that we offer the type of customer service that you can only get from a locally owned company, but with the resources of a national company. So we appreciate the opportunity to share that with you.
Absolutely. And I talk to you guys all the time. I appreciate your time and blocking this out today, and just being willing to share with our consumers. I did share in the chat here Derek's contact information. So if you have any questions, guys, if you're having problems, questions, concerns with small businesses, just call us. I know you call the national companies and they go, well, to make a payment, press 1. To review your, there's no one to talk to. But as small businesses, we are here. We're physically in the office. We exist in the real world. So call us if you have comments, concerns, questions. We are always trying to get better. I don't think any of us are ever going to be perfect. That is not who humans are, but we're going to keep trying every day. We're going to own anything that we can improve upon, and we're going to work towards that. You've got Derek's information. If you have any questions about their services for ours, I'm going to pop that in the chat for you now. If you have any questions about us, we are here for you guys. Our goal is to help you have homes, properties that serve you for whatever means those are. Today, obviously, we're discussing investors. But if you're a homeowner, you're going to have a flood maybe at some point in time, or you will know somebody that has. So please feel free to share our vendors' information with them and take care of them. Maybe you're the one instructing them on what they should be doing because you've watched this video. And we could all use a little bit of help and a kinder world out there for each other. So please let us know if we can do anything for you. Derek, thank you so much again for being a great partner to us, being here for our clients and customers. And I'm really appreciative that we just had you here today to help educate them.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, guys, we'll see you at the next Crowdcast. Feel free to shoot us an email, subscribe online, and we'll look forward to the next time. If we don't see you, it is Thanksgiving week. So please have a wonderful, happy, and safe Thanksgiving, and we'll see you again soon here in Austin, Texas.